My guest today is someone whose work has had a real impact on me, not just in my mind, but in my body, emotions, and overall energy. Liza Al Sady is a breath expert and founder of We the Conscious, a breath-led multidisciplinary studio based in Hackney Downs. Her work invites us to return home to ourselves, listening to our bodies, regulating our nervous systems, and breathing into spaces that we have long felt unsafe. In a culture that teaches us to override, numb, or ignore what our bodies are trying to tell us, Liza offers another path, one that invites presence, compassion, and deep release. In this episode, we explore how trauma can manifest in the body, from gut tension to jaw tightness to pelvic holding, and how breathwork can become a bridge back to safety, trust, and personal power. If you've ever felt disconnected from your body or wondered how breathwork might help you heal, this conversation might just be what you need. Liza has also been a mentor to me over the past 2 years of knowing her, and I'm proud to call her a friend. Hello, Liza. It's such a pleasure to have you on Owning Space. Your work has helped so many people reconnect with themselves through breath, presence, and embodiment, and I'm really excited about this conversation that we're about to have and for the listeners. So there's a lot of talk these days about the idea that the body keeps score, which of course is also the title of a well-known book on trauma and healing. But before we get into that, I'd love to start with your own journey. What led you to this work and what drew you specifically to breathwork as a path to healing?
Hello.
Hello.
I just want to say that intro was absolutely incredible. I was like, okay, you've kind of summed it up. Like, we're done here.
We're done. Podcast over.
Exactly. So thank you. I felt that in my heart. And it's so beautiful to hear that, you know, my work and working with you has kind of helped you on your journey. It means so much. And I've seen the progress in your own body and in your own life and how it's manifesting in your conscious reality. So it's a beautiful way to honor you as well and celebrate you. I genuinely feel that the journey here was quite a tumultuous but also an organic journey in a way. I grew up in quite a fractured home, if that makes sense. We traveled a lot. There were so many different partners that are coming in and out of the house. There wasn't any stability. There wasn't any safety. Mm-hmm. Different people looked after me. So I think by the age of 13, I probably moved about 13 times, not just within the same country, but different countries, different states, different languages, different people who looked after me. Mm-hmm. And it was throughout that period where the people who were closest to me, i.e. family, extended family, stepfathers, who actually had the most impact on the abuse that I personally suffered. And so something kind of happened when I was 17. It was quite a big sort of fight between myself and my stepdad over a mango that sort of gave me this flash in my head about moving from Kuwait, where I was living at the time, to Australia. And it kind of felt like a big cutting of the cord for me. And I started my own life there, learned English all over, because I didn't really know, apart from like rap music, you know, Crisscross and Boyz II Men and all that, I didn't really know how to speak English. So when I went to Australia when I was 17, they were like, yeah, you're not going into uni like this. You're going to have to like learn the language. And it kind of just started, and I felt that now that I look back, there was some sort of spiritual cord cutting that happened there. Because it's only now that I begin to realize that, gosh, I must have cut a big family lineage cord when it comes to abuse and it comes to those cycles that a lot of women in my family lineage have suffered from. And but I always kind of carried this armor of resentment and anger and a lot of stuff in my body that I held towards my family. You know, there was a lot of resentment in terms of, but why? Why did you do that? How did you do that to me? You know, all of these questions that I'm sure so many people continuously think about when they're on their own journey. Well, why did my mum do that to me? Why did my dad leave? Why was I abandoned? You know, why did my grandmother abuse me? All of these questions. So for me, it was like, well, I'm going to have to be a high achiever. I'm going to have to do my master's degree, work as hard as I can, make my own money because I cannot ask for help. Asking for help from my family meant that for me that I'd failed. So I spent, when I moved to London about 15 years ago, I think, I moved here as a primary school teacher because that's what I trained in. And then my visa was about to run out, so I went into recruitment so that was the easiest way for me. And that was like the pool of the feeding of all of my patterns, which I knew later on down the line that they were my patterns. I was like high achieving, getting accolades for being, in the top 10, making loads of money, traveling around the world. So, but what did that bring with it? It brought with it alcohol addiction, lots of drug addiction. I would not be able to survive a weekend without having any of that. And it was part of the culture of working in the corporate world is about that, right? How much champagne can you drink? So I was actually celebrated for being able to stay out for 2 days. And then Liza will be able to come back into the office and put a mask on and just, smash the phones and make money, etc. And it was during that period, like pre-COVID, where I kind of like my friends would be like, gosh, the men that you attract in your life kind of like not on the same level. And I always wanted to be with men that were either broken, emotionally unavailable, on suicide watch, drug dealers. That's the kind of man I would never go, oh yeah, I'm going to introduce them to my parents, for example. But also the men who were the green flags, I'd push them away. So that was part of my pattern, the pushing away, the cold, the shutdown, etc. And it was, my friends kind of started dabbling into this idea of the inner child and what the inner child was. And in my head, I was like, back then, my belief was, well, I know that what happened to me as a child was quite turbulent and awful and shocking. But that's them and that's me now. And they're two completely separate versions. And, I'm changing my life now. But I slowly began to realize that my conscious reality that I was living in was actually an extension of my subconscious and all the patterns and the behaviors and the limiting beliefs that I learned to cope with from being a child. And so I started in my own room. I was really scared to go into therapy because I was like, gosh, I was always scared to talk to people about my past. Apart from my best, really close friends that I'd known for like 20, 25 years, no one really knew. I felt that I had to shelter that part of me because I felt that people weren't going to accept me and love me fully if they knew what I'd gone through, and I didn't want people to pity me. So I suppose I started in my own room, going on Spotify, looking at hypnosis, looking at this inner child thing that people have been talking about, trying to learn more about the body. And so I started mixing stuff. So I learned that affirmations and changing your frequency within your body can actually change your conscious reality or rewire your system. So I recorded my own affirmations and blended frequencies into them and listened to them in my sleep. I started, the idea of meditating and not knowing that breathwork was a thing back then. We're talking about 6-7 years ago. I thought I'd invented breathwork. I shit you not. I honestly thought I'd invented the breath because I was like meditating and started just manipulating my breath. And I was like, for the first time ever in my entire life, I felt a second of safety in my own body. And I'm like, shit, I've invented something. Hold on. Not knowing that the breath has been around for like forever, right? And I never thought to Google it or anything like that. And that's it. That kind of started my journey with it. It gave me the courage to start RTT, Rapid Transformational Therapy, which is a therapy that I absolutely love. And it goes hand in hand with the breath and the stuff that I do. And then after that, I went in and did talk therapy, EMDR. And then I dived into the Hoffman process, which I owe my entire life change to it. And it was then that I decided to pitch to the work that I was in to become the head of well-being, to just give 20 minutes of breath work. I hadn't had a qualification by then, just to get people to feel what I was feeling in my own bedroom. And every Monday, a group of people would come in. I'd sit with them for 20 minutes. I'd do some breath techniques, a bit of music, etc. And just watching how people's complete shift in stress moved down, lowered, they came back into the body. Straight away, I was like, that's my purpose. That's it. And that's what got me into this journey. And here we are, 3 years later. Well, 3 years later since I've started to be the conscious, having a beautiful community around me who really believe in the breath and the body and somatics, and a studio that sort of is the anchor of everything that I do.
And you've just moved into a new studio as well, which we can talk about a little later. There's a couple of follow-ups that I'd love to ask based on that.
Yeah.
And one thing that you and I have spoken about since meeting you, and it's these core beliefs that one might have, one being, classic example is I'm not good enough, or I'm not lovable. You mentioned some traits that you might have had, or you did have could have been your late teens, 20s, potentially your early 30s, of going for the wrong kind of relationship.
Yeah.
You've also spoken about a kind of resent for your family, which I know that you've been working through, or you have worked through over the last few years. Do you think there's a level of the subconscious part of you? You mentioned you didn't want to introduce said man to your parents.
Yeah.
Do you think there's a part of you which did that on purpose, subconsciously, going for the wrong kind of man because you knew you wouldn't be approved of?
I think now that I understand patterns a lot more and limiting beliefs a lot more, going for that kind of person is part of the limiting beliefs that I led to believe myself when I was a lot younger, right? Accepting crumbs for love was something that I did because my father was absent. And my father, would promise that he'd come and then he'd never come. But also it's a patterning that I've seen with my mother and her own. She comes from she's a powerful, incredible woman that I owe so much to. And she's so inspiring. But she's had a very, very turbulent childhood and upbringing. So I saw the idea of accepting crumbs as part of her own trying to find intimacy and love in her own world. So actually I grew up, not being shown what true love is in a partnership from parents or stepdads or family members. But also I was led to believe that actually if my father was really absent and then he comes for a little visit for a couple of hours, then I'm taking that, right? So what's the belief here? The belief here is that, well, actually somebody can give you crumbs for love and that's okay. They still love you. So you grow up really with that psyche, with that understanding that actually, getting crumbs for love is okay. But it's later on, once you go deep into your healing, and I don't like to use the word work on yourself. It's more of a curious sense of exploration and play. You begin to understand that actually what you're worthy of is a lot more than that.
Yeah. And
for someone to love you, they've got to be all-encompassing, fully in love with you. And so, through the years of therapy and the stuff that I've done, of course, I've been able to change the relationship that I've had with my family to make it a lot more compassionate about the journey that they've taken to come to this point here. I think my mum could have turned out to be something completely different because of her own trauma, and she could have given us up, for example, you know what I mean? And so throughout the journey of my own journey, I've become to learn that there's a lot of forgiveness that's had to happen for my family, but also an acceptance of this is what my life used to be, and in a way being very proud of the journey that has And that's the acceptance of all versions of you. But I think until you tap into the subconscious and your limiting beliefs and your patterning that has come from a very young age, because that's your coping mechanism, right? You know from a very, very young age that if you make your bed and you're really, really good, then your parents are going to reward you. So the pattern of goody comes from that, right? Or the high achieving, when your parents reward you for being, you know, the best one in the class or whatever. That's the divinity of us as humans, where from a very young age you begin to learn, by doing this action I get this in return, and that's where your limiting belief starts from.
And I wonder if, you know, as children you don't really know what safety is, right? It could be, safety could mean so many different things to different people, but as you're growing up, if it has been abusive, or, you know, someone has been absent, that level of safety or that definition is probably different for a lot of people.
Yeah, I think it's very different, because for a child, they will always choose the safety of their immediate family, no matter how abusive it is, or no matter how turbulent it is, because they don't know anything else. You know, you're not going to have a child of 4 or 5 years old just open the door and go, yeah, see you later, guys. This is not working
Pack
for
my
me.
bags.
Bye. Actually, I tried to do that, but, you know, like, or you're like, you know, you've got an apple in your bag and you're like, yep, I'm leaving. But, you know, there's no other safety. You know, they don't really understand what safety looks like, if that makes sense. And your body is so incredibly wise that, you know, depending on the level of trauma or past hurt that happens, your body knows how to shut down.
What does safety mean to you now, and what is that feeling to you?
I think safety for me now is really broad. I think for me, being able to be so comfortable in my own skin, you know, like, I absolutely love the part of me that says the F word all the time. Are we allowed to say F word?
Yeah. I just need to mark it as explicit on podcast, but that's fine.
You know, I love the version of me that says fuck all the time. It's a version of me. You have seen that version of me during breathwork and outside of breathwork, because there's no difference. And I think for me, safety is giving myself the okay to actually show all different parts of me without feeling that I'm going to be judged or, you know, not loved or anything like that. There's an anchoring. There's a beautiful anchoring in the body once you feel so safe and assured within yourself and who you are, right? It feels like no matter how turbulent the world around you is, you're like, man, I'm so anchored in here in myself. And for me, that's safety. But also, I'm really, really grateful that because of all the stuff that I've done and the work that I've done, I've been able to find a partner who, you know, is so loving and compassionate and understanding and so proud of my past and my future, that I'm able to find safety in that.
I think also, and I spoke about this in my second episode in Burnout, and it's finding your tribe. And I wonder also, throughout your journey, and, you know, building your own business, having your own studio in Hackney Downs, which is just incredible. Like, you walk in, there's so much positive energy because of the kind of people who attend your classes. And apart from your partner and your gorgeous dog, do you think there's a certain level of, like, you found your tribe now as well through all the work that you're doing?
I think so. I think it's really interesting, because I find that people who join We the Conscious are people who really get it and understand it. Not only through the sessions that we hold, but also through the walks that we do and all the community stuff that we do. There's a bonding. There's a really big bonding. And I'm not talking about trauma bonding. I'm talking about people wanting something a bit more deep and personal, right? Like a belonging.
Yeah.
And so for me, I feel, yes, there is. I feel like I'm part of a tribe, right? And so I feel like this tribe is a tribe that really, really understand the notion of it's okay to be different, and I'm really going to celebrate that. And I'm going to honor every single part of me, which is exactly what the studio is about, right? The studio is not just about, well, we're going to focus on the physical, because at the end of the day, the physical could be as lush as, but if you feel on the inside within your inner landscape not good enough, not worthy, my gosh, no matter how much you focus on your outer shell, the feeling is going to continue to be the same. And so the studio is an all-encompassing of what it is to be human in this discombobulated world we live in. You know, the fastness, the busy minds, the busy life. It's fast. Modern life is really fast. How do I celebrate and anchor myself in every single facet of this human experience is exactly what the studio is about. And exactly what the practices are about.
And it's community. It's finding that sense of community.
Totally.
So I want to go into the breath. But just before we do, can you explain to listeners what trauma is? And trauma is used a lot now. It's kind
So
of like
much.
a buzzword.
Yeah.
And I don't know if it's being used in the right way all the time. So when people speak about trauma and releasing trauma and holding trauma, what does that mean?
Yeah. I think people are latching on because they're trying to find a way through this, what we're living in, right? And so we latch onto buzzwords, nervous system, it's trauma bonding, all this stuff. You know, people are trying to connect in so many different ways to find the tools they need to really survive this modern world that we live in, because we were never structured and created to live like this. And so trauma essentially, and you know, the root word or meaning of trauma is a wound. And a wound could be anything from a physical wound down to an emotional wound, down to a psychological wound. They only added emotional and psychological, I think, in 19th century, but pre that, it was a wound as in a physical wound. And so when we talk about trauma, for me, I like to call it as past hurt, because it's so varied, right? The notion of past hurt, it could be that, I don't know, you fell off your bike when you were a kid and your knee still flares up, right? Essentially, it's a physical wound, but it's manifesting somatically for something greater, which we'll talk about later on, and how the body sort of deals with it. So I think people want to, the invitation here is for people to look at past hurt, moving away from the idea of trauma, because I feel it is quite an overused word, but also sometimes it's an underused word, because some people think trauma is like, okay, I got locked up in a cupboard when I was 5 for 70 days. That's the idea of like trauma. It's like something really big, and it's psychological, or it's sexual abuse or something like that. Trauma could be two parents that are super busy who weren't emotionally available for a child.
Yeah.
So a past hurt or an experience could be so small and insignificant at the time that can leave a bigger scar for when you grow up. So for me, that's how I like to look at what the definition of trauma is.
Do you think in your studio, I mean, when you've spoken about your own experience, it was kind of like an overfilling cup, and, you know, you were working in recruitment, you said that you were, you know, drinking a lot, taking drugs and things like that.
Yeah. And
would you say that the cup kind of overfilled, and then it was at that point where you decided to work on yourself? And my question off the back of that is, in your studio, do you think people come to you when, not that it's too late, that's not what I'm trying to go with, but when they're at a point where
despair.
They're like, exactly, despair, rather than coming to you going, I'm feeling a bit like stressed, a bit anxious?
Because I don't think we do. I don't think we do. As humans, we have been conditioned to do more, to achieve more, to create more. You know, the idea of resting, there's a lot of guilt surrounding that. You know, well, I can't rest until I achieve something, or, you know what I mean? So the majority of the time, you know, people don't go to doctors, let's say, until they are like on the other on the other side of it, where you're like, oh shit, I can't deal with this anymore. Something's really wrong, right? For me personally, I couldn't deal with my own shit anymore. That's kind of where it all came down to, where I'm like looking at myself in the mirror going, I've been out for 3 days. Like, what is going on here? What is it that I'm trying to mask? Like, why am I doing this? You know, those are the questions that I started. Why am I doing this? All of my mates went home 12 hours ago. Why am I still out with a group of strangers? Why have I lost my voice? Why? I'm in a great job, but really I wasn't in hindsight. You know, get paid a lot of money. I finished my master's degree. I've traveled around the world. Why am I doing that? And so it's once you begin to question the why that you begin to look deeper, you know, kind of scratch the surface and go in. But people who come to the studio, gosh, it's so vast, right, Annika? Because the stuff that we offer now it's all connected to the breath, but it's also all connected to your entire life experience. But a lot of the people that come to see me, there is a lot of burnout. There is grief. There is stuff where now it's compounded, right? There's stuff where there's clients who come to me where their life is absolutely fine, and then they get a memory that comes in that floods all of this stuff that the mind has tried to forget, but the body begins to remembers, right? So, but for the majority of the time, people are burnt out without realizing that they're burnt out. You know, people are tired. We are so disconnected from our bodies and ourselves more than ever, even though we're so connected to algorithms and being online and stuff. We were never created to be looking at our phones all the time or looking at screens, etc. And it changes your nervous system, it changes your breath, it changes everything. So yeah, the people who come to the studio come because they need time to come back to the body.
Yeah, and as someone who goes to your studio, and I've known you for the last 2 years or just over 2 years, I felt like I got into breathwork when I kind of stumbled across it. I'd done a lot of yoga, a lot of kind of breathwork in the sense of not the conscious connective breath.
Yeah, like a down-regulating kind of breath.
Like the nostril breathing and things like that. So I wasn't really aware of it. And when I first did it, it was actually in Barcelona. I was on holiday. I had never felt anything like that. The rush of, I mean, I'm not sure if I'm saying the right chemicals here, but like serotonin or the different kind of, the rush that I got after it, I'd never felt anything like that. And then from then on, when I got back to London, I think I saw you consistently pretty much for 1.5 years, 2 years.
Yeah.
So can you speak to us about the breath and how conscious connective breath work is different to other types of breath work and kind of normal breathing?
Yeah. I think, breathwork is sort of like an umbrella for all sorts of different techniques and ways. But the thing that I want to mention here is your breath is directly connected to your nervous system and also your mood. So whatever mood and emotional state you're in, your breath will change accordingly. So if you're angry, shorter breaths, heart palpitations, etc. Stressed, same thing. It's very short breathing in and out. Sometimes we move into mouth breathing rather than nasal breathing, right? So scared, the same thing, right? So your breath is mimicking anything that's happening in your body. It's not a separate thing. It's all connected. So, we see a lot of people breathing through the mouth when actually, even though we do that during conscious connected breath work, but when you're breathing through your mouth on a day-to-day basis, you are constantly activating your flight or fight. When we're feeling angry, the first thing we do is we start breathing through our mouth, right? This is a signal to the body, yo, we're in danger. My heart is racing, something's happening. On a day-to-day basis, we need to be breathing through our nose. Our nose was created as a filtration part of our body. It filters the air 30% more than the mouth. It gives the body the signal that, hey, we're ready to rest. Let's just slow the breathing in through the nose.
Mm-hmm.
And so you can manipulate your breath to achieve a certain desire.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, like the sessions that I run at the studio, where like the early morning, I call them energetic massage, but they are about 45 minutes of high vibe breathing,
Mm-hmm.
right? You're going to sweat. It's, you know, creating this positive energy in your body. If you want to calm things down, then you calm the breath and slow it down, and you breathe through the nose. If you want to go deep into the transformative breath, then you do stuff like holotropic or conscious connected breath work.
Mm-hmm.
And people don't realize how something like the breath can be a tool for venting.
Mm-hmm.
I call it a venting mechanism. That's what conscious connected breath work is for me. And you know, you've been to my sessions before where I never promote the idea of like, we are going to release specific emotions when we're breathing or anything like that. For me, it's about closing loop cycles, closing, you know, stuff that's open in your body and giving yourself the stillness you need to process, because we don't usually give ourselves that. So by manipulating your breath and changing the cycle of your breath, conscious connected breathwork is such a powerful modality that helps you shift your state from, and that's what you felt after the breath session, where you're like, oh my gosh, I fucking feel high on my own supply, right? Where you're like, how has that happened? Right, where you're like, I was crying my eyes out just 10 minutes ago when I was during the breath, and now I feel really grateful. And there's something so beautiful about when you give yourself the space to surrender to the breath and the body, and allow the mind, which tends to take over 95% of the time, to take a sidestep.
Yeah, and is that within the mouth breathing that we've done within your studio, is that tapping into the unconscious mind?
I wouldn't say that. This type of breathing can promote altered states of consciousness. It's not something that I ever promote, altered states of consciousness, because I don't feel that there's a lot of studies about that specific altered states of consciousness, if that makes sense. I know that a lot of people promote it, and you can go into altered states of consciousness, but it's not something that I go, well, that's something you're going to, you know. But you can see images, you can see colors, you can see people who have passed, people who are present. You can get answers for questions that you've been wanting to find answers for. You can connect to versions of yourself, you know, especially during like childhood stuff. But sometimes you won't see anything at all. You're just on the breath. And that's the beauty of it, that no two sessions are ever going to be the same. But I'll tell you what it does allow you to do. It gives you the space to just simply be and connect.
Yeah.
Because we don't often connect to the breath. You know, nobody knows how many breaths we breathe a day. Nobody knows where the breath is going. Is it shallow? Is it in the chest? Is it in the body, etc.? But you know, through the method that I use, that we use a lot of other techniques during the breath. You know, we do promote catharsis in the sense of the screaming and the movement, and there's a lot more that we do within the session to allow you to connect to the plethora of your own human experience that you're experiencing in that moment. You know, gosh, I think I want to scream about 20,000 times a day. I know, exaggeration, but you know what I mean? Where you're like, you know, how often do we scream? We don't, because we don't allow ourselves to experience these huge, big, beautiful emotions that are part of who we are, right?
Yeah.
We think we have to hold it all in, you know, and that creates so much disease and tension in the body. You know, trying to hold in how upset you are, feel the energy, that pushing down. What is that doing to the body on an energetic level?
And that's one of my favorite parts of your sessions is when we scream, or when we use our hands to or stamp, and we move around.
Yeah.
And there's a couple of your sessions that I've come to where we have masks on, eye masks.
Yeah.
And we move our bodies, and the level of safety that you feel in that room with those, the community kind of people, or like-minded people, you can release. And I think that's the best word to describe it. Each session is a release. You just spoke about pushing things down.
Yeah.
And over time, so say if you are holding in anger, resentment, you're upset at a friend.
Yeah.
And over time, this can build up. So where are the most kind of classic places where people hold trauma for men and women?
I'm just going to go back to the notion of safety during a session, because I think it's really important to point that out. And thank you so much. I really appreciate it when I get feedback to say, gosh, I felt so safe. There's something so beautiful about that. But actually, I don't create the safety. The safety, it's down to every single person to create safety within their own body, so it's primed to go into the breath. I know that I can help facilitate some of that by making the journey from the moment that you step into the studio as calm as possible and personable as possible. And the meditation that we do beforehand and the conversations that we do have allows the body to just be here in this moment, where you kind of begin, the nervous system or your mind begins to go, okay, I think I feel safe now. However, I think me personally can't provide your body the safety, if that makes sense. Which is part of the method, of course, the idea of trying to make every single part of your journey from the moment you step in one where you can actually just relax into it. In terms of the storing of the where do we store stuff? This is a very interesting question, and I find it really, really interesting, because I think we have led to believe it's only now that we're beginning to really connect to how the mind and the body work, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
For many years, we kind of had this idea that actually it's all here. And I said a metaphor recently in one of my one-to-one sessions that I'm going to share with you about thinking or imagining that your mind is a china bowl, whatever color you want it, sparkly or whatever, and it just holds your stories, your experiences, etc., all of it, right? And I kind of want you to sort of bring your awareness back to when you were a child, perhaps. That's kind of where we are. However, this can happen anytime, even when you're an adult, with grief, for example. Now, when something happens where it's quite big, and as a child where your mind is not fully developed yet, your brain is not fully developed, the amygdala shoots up, right? So you can't process it. It's too big for you to process because that part of your brain is not developed yet. What happens is that bowl breaks, shards. Now, where does that go? What happens to it? Now, what happens to it is it gets dispersed in your body in a way, and we're talking about energetics and somatics here, in a way where it's fragmented into your senses. That is the trauma encoding.
Right.
So the body doesn't remember their story in that sense. It remembers the smell. What was the smell when that happened?
That's so interesting.
What was the color?
Yeah.
What was the shape? That's how we remember it. And then that's how triggers happen, right? So we're not triggered by a story that's similar, even though we can be triggered by it. We're kind of triggered by a smell, where you're like, somebody might walk past you and you smell that smell and you're like, I hate that smell. That smell's reminding me of something. I hate that smell. The same with walking past a rose bush and smelling the rose, and you go, oh my gosh, that reminds me of my grandma, and you have a great relationship with your grandmother.
Yeah.
Right? Same thing with if you have had a very difficult time, for example, as a child, and you went in and out of hospitals, the smell of hospitals is going to trigger you very differently to somebody else who's not been to hospitals. So this is how we kind of connect with our past experiences or our past hurt, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And so I always say the trigger is where the gold lies. The trigger is where you're going to let light in, or where you're going to begin to unravel and uncover parts of you. Why am I feeling like that? So it really depends where your body stores past hurt. In its essence, it's energy and motion. That's what an emotion is. It's just energy, emotion. When we can't process it, it stops in the body, etc. But we do know, grief, for example, is here, right? All around here, around the chest, around the throat, around, shame, we kind of carry it here. But also, grief is quite a heavy energetic emotion, right? So when we cry, gosh, it's a sobbing, it's a moving forward type of thing. So just by doing that, your heart is being protected by your shoulders, because that is kind of like the energy of it.
Wow.
When we talk about stress, if you think of it energetically, it feels like a fizzy feeling in the body. It's like a fizzing. It's more of an uppity, right? It's an uppity thing, stress in the jaws and the shoulders.
Why do we hold stress in the jaw? Because I get that a lot. And
it's a bracing. It's a bracing of the tension, the clenching and the bracing, right?
Yeah.
But also we clench our teeth when we're trying to grit speaking our truth. There's an emotional bracing there.
Yeah.
But also, if you were a child who was always afraid because either they're going to get smacked or older brother, sibling, whatever it is, something is going to happen, there's a hypervigilance here. The tightness in the neck can also be like, oh my gosh, always looking over your shoulders, worried, scared that something is going to happen. So the body essentially will hold past her, the hips are a big one for emotions, but also it's connected to desire and sexuality and sensuality, because this is the root of it. If you were told from a very young age that parts of your body are deemed unacceptable or not right, or sex was taboo and stuff, well, we hold it all here. So what the trigger is going to be is that when you're in an intimate relationship or a sexual relationship, there's going to be a bracing. It's only natural that that's going to happen.
And that's, what this podcast is all about, in the sense of talking about these kind of taboos, these uncomfortable topics. So let's take, for example, periods.
Yeah.
It was, I grew up in the 90s. No one spoke about periods and things like that. And I wonder if, on a certain level, my endometriosis has got, I do get a lot of pelvic pain, and I do think I store trauma in that area. But I wonder if it came from an earlier age of, we shouldn't talk about it. It's too dirty to talk about it.
Yeah.
And over time,
I feel you.
it's like storing that.
I feel you, yeah. But also you've got to think about, your own family lineage, right? Because actually, if you think of the lineage of the females in your family and what was a taboo, it goes back to quite a few generations, right?
Yeah.
So if you think of your mum in your grandma's womb, and so in a way you're connected to your grandmother because your mother's eggs were created while she was in her mother's womb, right?
Yeah.
So when we talk about what lives in the body, it's not just about our own experiences, but also past experiences of our own families. And when I was doing my training in new emotional release, one of the things that we had to do was about, when I talk about it a lot, I had acute PID from a sexual relationship that I had, but part of it was a module for anyone who had endometriosis or something like this.
Yeah.
And it was about diving into the womb and figuring out, well, where does this come from, right? And what came up for me is the oppression of females in my family lineage. You know, I'm originally from the Middle East. I'm Lebanese Palestinian. My dad's from, you know, Iraq. Gosh, you know, the amount of women who were beaten up in my family because it was part of it. Periods when you can't speak about it. There's so much that happened. So yeah, it does live in the body. And the idea is to give yourself the space and the grace to explore it, not only with your own psyche, but also your lineage.
And I guess this kind of gives me a good segue to my next question, which is, we've discussed the breath, and for people who don't know what somatic healing is or somatic work,
Yeah.
can you speak about that for us, please?
Because that's another buzzword, isn't it, at the moment? Jeez. I'm like, what the hell? It's everywhere. But not a lot of people know what it is. The essence of somatics is listening, for me. The idea of stepping away from the mind and really listening to the body. A somatic approach is about understanding that your body is holding on to stuff and being okay with exploring and investigating what's here. And conscious connected breathwork could be seen as a somatic experience. Of course, it's a somatic experience because we're in the body. The somatic movement that I do, neo-emotional release, is all part of connecting to the body rather than making sense of it. You know, like trying not to make sense of it, just sense it, feel into it, you know, rather than moving from the discomfort of the hips, being with the discomfort. And it's the idea of flowing with your body somatically without trying to figure out, well, what is the purpose of me moving like this? For me, is the essence of what somatics is.
And when one is doing breath work, and this has happened to me before, and I know when you facilitate, you walk around and you look at if people are breathing in the right way and how they're doing. And you've come over to me a couple of times in the past and you've pressed on different parts of my body.
Yeah.
So can you, and it's, if I remember correctly, it's around my chest,
Yeah.
or it will be a point in my like near my pelvis. So
Yeah.
what does that do?
So for me, it's doorways, right? And so that's kind of part of my neo-emotional release training, where there's different doorways in the body that can release tension. But also a doorway could be think of it as a button where there's tension that allows you to release something. And I don't want to label what we're going to release, but there's doorways throughout your entire body. So when I'm with you, I connect to your chest and your pelvis, because I know your life story. We know where we are. We've done one-to-one together. We know what we're working on. You know, other peeps, you know, I work on their palms or on their gut, or it could be there, or it could be even there, right? A doorway is kind of exactly that, a point where you can go in and let yourself be with something, explore it. However, sometimes, for me personally, when I'm doing breath, there's an element of connecting to my divine feminine. My approach is, even though it can be hardcore sometimes, the breath sessions that we do, it's coming from a feminine approach in the sense. When I was trained in breathwork, my breath master didn't touch anybody. That was his approach. It's like, I used to touch people, now I don't. And for me, I find it, sometimes that's exactly what a person needs to let go and release something, where they feel safe enough now that someone's put their hand on their chest, where they can actually cry or sob or whatever. So for me, there's an element of sensing what somebody needs in that moment, but also connecting to the doorways the doorway approach with new emotional release.
Because there's a lot of shake. Well, I know it's different for each individual, but for me, when I do, and you support me with somatic healing, it's my body shakes completely,
Yes.
and I don't. And sometimes each experience is different, but there'll be some sessions where I shake so much, and some I don't at all, and I have this kind of, I release, but I don't. It's not as exaggerated. Let's say.
So shaking is really interesting, right? Because animals in the wild shake all the time to release extra stress in their body,
animals.
right? If two animals are like at like this butting heads, you know, afterwards they shake, right? You can feel it, they see it. So TRE, which is an incredible modality, is all about activating the shaking in your body, right? Now, I had a client who had been going to a therapist for 6 months, and because they'd unraveled something within their past, a bombshell. And so this person was trying to figure out how to navigate this. So of course they went to a talk therapist, and during the session they would shake. Their arms would just shake. And so they asked the therapist, how long is it going to take for this shake to like leave my body? And the therapist was like, oh, probably about 6 to 9 months. So, you know, we're going through stuff, keeping in mind your body's been holding this thing since you're a very young child. And somehow this person remembered that at uni they'd done a conscious connected breathwork session. This person's in their 50s now, right? And so they remembered that the session that they did in their 20s was like mind-blowing. So divine timing, they found me. And the first 6 months we worked on one-to-ones, and the shaking that happened from the first session, they were like, oh my gosh, this is what I'd been looking for, where the body releases all this tension, right?
Yeah.
So the shaking is a natural response to releasing stuff that we've been holding and we've been carrying, right? Now this person 2 years later comes to my group sessions, and it's so beautiful. It's just so beautiful to see how the progress, not only within the body, but also in this person's conscious reality and the changes that they've been able to make. So the shaking is such a beautiful way where your body is processing.
Because I feel, I mean, just speaking about my experience, like when I do shake in a session, I feel so much better. On my walk home, like skipping home.
Loosey-goosey.
I know, I just see like rainbows, unicorns, which actually brings me on to...
Not many people can do that, you know.
But see rainbows and unicorns.
Well, yeah. I was just seeing that rainbow over there. No, the shaking element, not many people can take themselves there, right? And it's a beautiful, you know, when you go into the shake, there's this divinity of the complete trust between what's happening between your breath and your body.
Yeah.
This is your own way of processing, and not many people can actually reach that stage. So when that happens to you, gosh, it's beautiful. It's a celebration that you've been able to connect to that.
I know this sounds weird, but when it starts happening, I don't want it to stop, because I know I'm a bit like, just get it out, you know, just release all the trauma, release everything now.
Yeah.
And I know I'll feel so much better after.
Yeah.
So earlier you touched on within breathwork, you can see kind of past experiences and potentially something in the future.
Yeah.
How does that happen in your brain?
Do you know what? I think for me, of course, it's got to do with the CO2 and the amount of air that we take, etc., and that kind of balance and imbalance of it all. But for me, I read something recently about once we begin to bring science into it, it no longer becomes as divine as it should be. Because we can't make sense of everything. There's so many things that happen in our lives where we can't really explain it. And I feel the breath is exactly the same, because no two experience, no two people are ever going to be the same journey when they're doing the breath. I wanted to go back and touch on the releasing of the trauma, which is something that is really important for us to highlight here for this particular podcast, is that I feel like there's no such thing as releasing the trauma. Even though sometimes we may feel that that's what's happening. I think we're allowing ourselves the capacity to be with and to complete any cycles that are open. And so we don't release it per se, but we give ourselves the resilience to hold on to it a lot more. To hold on, to make sure that actually we're giving ourselves the grace and the space to be with it all. Yeah, to be with it. And then there's a processing, yes. And then there's some sort of release, yes. Are we releasing trauma per se? We don't know, because it's stored in sensations. So what is it that I'm releasing, or what am I giving myself the capacity to hold and honor?
Yeah.
Would be my way of probably looking at it.
I guess it's like getting closer to the mind and body, right?
The connection.
Yeah, the connection to yourself, and knowing that deep release, let's call it, which isn't, as you say, of trauma, but it's
a release per se, right?
Yeah.
And it could be anything. And that brings us back to the idea of, well, stress can also be trauma. So does breath help with stress? Yes, of course it does. Right? Because it's giving you the space to recalibrate, to shift, to move. I think of the breath as like, thinking of this, what is this? Is this a feather duster?
I don't know, call them fluffy things.
Fluffy things, exactly. This fluffy thing. I don't know if you had this growing up, but my mum used to have something like this for the dust.
Oh, yeah.
The thingy-mabobby.
That was such a 90s, 80s thing. And I was
the fluorescent
you're
one.
making it worse. You're moving more dust around.
Exactly this. What I feel like the breath is like, I want to say this fluffy thing, but I'm going to move. I feel like the breath is like a hose of water. Just moving stuff around. That's why, when we finish the breath, I always say, the body's just playing catch up. We're just playing catch up here. We're not going to go in and analyze and figure it all out. And why is this and why is that? Which this is just a flushing. It's like a beautiful flushing. You're like, you've moved things around and now we want the dust to settle. And there's something so beautiful and divine about knowing that you have the power, the innate power and the divinity to actually do that for yourself just by using the breath.
Yeah, no drugs.
To cleanse, to detoxify,
no mushrooms.
to move. Exactly, right? And you're like, fuck, how powerful am I as a human that I am able to connect to this innate wisdom within me? This is the medicine, not pharmaceutical stuff and all that stuff. This is the medicine. Your body, your breath, the somatic, the energy, the frequency is your medicine. And the more you begin to connect with the medicine, the more you are connecting to your life force energy. The more you're able to shift stuff from a cellular level, because you know that you have the power to heal yourself.
Yeah.
Just by that.
And it's, you spoke about this early on in the podcast. It's like that forgiveness and the letting go of the resentment. And I think through your sessions and through doing breath work and, trying it by myself at home and things like that, I just feel like, I think the only way to describe it as lighter is I feel lighter. One thing which makes me laugh is at the end of your sessions, when everyone kind of finishes their breath work, their individual, session, you say, you might want to reach out to an ex-boyfriend or ex-partner, or, someone that a friend that you've been thinking of and you haven't spoken to them for a while, but maybe sit on it. Give it a couple of days.
Give it a couple of days.
What is that?
I think because we we all have baggage. Gosh, we all have baggage. Some of us have the courage to open the baggage and look in and go, right, I don't need this, I don't need this, I don't need this, and make the baggage lighter. But for the majority of us, we carry so much baggage. Think of like 20, 30, 50, 100 kgs of past shit that we're holding on to, plus the stuff that happens on a day-to-day basis, right? When we go into the breath, people come in, everybody is from completely different walks of life, but everybody's going through something. There's no one person here who can turn around right now in this moment and say they're not going through something.
Yeah.
Some of the stuff that we go through is completely silent and inner, even though on the outside everything looks perfect. And some of the stuff is a bit more out there, right? Where people are they feel that it's okay for them to talk about it. So when we go into the breath, if somebody is grieving, if someone's just broke up with a partner, or if someone's just had a massive fight with a mother, etc., there's quite a lot of, I want to say, processing that might come throughout the experience where you feel compelled. Or even there's like a message where you're like, I haven't spoken my truth. I want to say whatever I wanted to say. And sometimes this experience is so personal that writing a message right there and then you might regret in 2 days time where you're like, oh fuck, I've opened up these channels, like, you know what you know what I mean. I always say just wait. And so many times people have gone, oh gosh, I've already constructed the letter in my head, right? To my ex, I want to write this and I want to write this, and why didn't they do this, and why didn't... Just wait, because at the end of the day, it's not about them. The experience is about you.
And don't give that power away, right?
Yeah, well,
that energy.
I feel like, I suppose, what happens during breath is your own personal experience, and what you're experiencing in that moment is for you. Anything that's coming up in terms of words or feelings or whatever is for you to process. And then in 2 days' time, if you want to share that with somebody, if you want to go, listen, there's something that I want to tell you, and then you pour your heart out and you speak your truth because you haven't said that, then yeah, by all means. But I do give people the grace to kind of go, whoa, just wait a couple of hours, just wait a couple of days before you spill the beans.
And I've done that. I've waited a couple of days and, then I haven't wanted to write that email or something. So it is interesting what comes up at that time.
Yeah.
And I know that you urge people to journal when they get home and, perhaps not watch Netflix or watch a movie or what, to numb it. Exactly.
Yeah. I think as a society, we are so good at putting things in boxes and then just going, right, I did breath work, great, this is going to heal me.
Go to the gym now.
Exactly. And I feel because of the way modern living is, so much to consume, so much to do, so much, people have got this feeling that they've got to really squeeze so much into their well-being and their healing and that, which is something that I'm seeing quite a lot of, right? You're like, breath work with Reiki, with sound healing, infused with sprinkles of matcha. I don't know what the hell's going on. But actually, that's an overload. That's an overload to the system rather than it being something that is going to help the body. You're overloading it. Whatever happened, just laying down and breathing. My gosh, that's the best medicine you'll ever have.
Yeah.
But this is the thing. I think we're so good at wanting to fix things really quickly and really fast. We're not fixing anything during breathwork because no one is broken. No one is broken. There's nothing here. We're not fixing anything. We're giving ourselves the grace and the space to honor and celebrate this, all of it. The good,
connection,
the bad, the ugly, the messy, the parts of us that we shut down. I always talk about the back of us, the back of us in our inner landscape. The back of us is the unfinished business.
Is that where we hold trauma in our...
I mean, we hold past experiences all over the body, right? So essentially, in the landscape of the body, the left side of the brain, the left hemisphere, is connected to the right side of the body. Now, the left hemisphere is the analytical, thinking, logical, mathematical part of us. And that filters through the right side of the body. The right side of the body in energetics and somatics, it's the masculine traits that we hold. But also this part of our body is the part where it's the doing, right? It's the part that is projecting outwards. It's the conversations, it's all outwards, right? But the right side of our body is actually the part that is also connected to the masculine lineage in our family, fathers, brothers, uncles, grandparents, etc. Now, the right side of your brain, the hemisphere, right hemisphere, is creative, intuitive, and that filters to the left side of the body, and that's where we hold our feminine traits, right? And emotional processing, and also it's an inward emotion. So the masculine is a giving outward, the feminine is more of an inward processing. The front part of our body is the part that we want the world to see, our ego, the masks that we wear. Everything is fine, we're smiling, everything is great. This is what we want the people to see, right? But often it hides. This is the mask that we wear that hides, you know, the grief, the silences, the heartbreak, the loneliness. We are in a loneliness epidemic. We've never been this lonely as a society, as humans. But we're masking, right? And then the back of us, it's the unfinished business. At the back of us is like the stuff that we're not ready to connect with. We're not ready to...
The icky stuff.
The icky stuff, the yucky stuff. So, you know, sometimes when you're like, your heart, if you're going through heartbreak, or if you're going through something big, there's this part of your back also can hurt. It's the part that we don't want to feel. It's the part that we don't want to feel, we don't want to connect with. This is the part that we deem unacceptable, the messy part that we hide from the world.
Is it shame?
I mean, shame is definitely quite a big one that lives everywhere, right? Because shame and embarrassment for us are something that everybody has. Shame and embarrassment. We're all ashamed and we're all embarrassed from all different degrees of stuff, right? But for me, that is the darkness in your body is what brings light. You know, actually connecting to shame and understanding where shame comes from and why we have shame and why we're embarrassed, you begin to really shed some light onto who you are beyond all of the conditioning and all the stuff that's happened.
Totally. So tapping into those triggers and finding out more about who you are.
Exactly. And, you know, like the period thing, right? Why do I feel so ashamed if, like, a bit of blood came on my trousers, right? We've been conditioned that women, it's a taboo thing, right?
Yeah.
We can't have period. We can't have da-da-da. Well, no shit, Sherlock. I'm a woman. I bleed. That's what happened. The same thing with, like, we can't speak in front of men about the bleed, and we can't da-da-da-da-da. And, like, the woman have to do it. For fuck's sake. All of that is, like, this is shame, right?
Yeah.
And shame can be so many different things. You got, you know, stuff that you are shaming yourself about, stuff that's brought down from your family. Things like, you know, for me, my family are very strict Muslims. You know, for them, this is shame, right? I've fallen out with my mom quite a few times. I've told you about, you know, my dress sense. Tattoos, what are other people going to say? You know, I feel so embarrassed. My daughter's in a magazine, but she's got tattoos. How am I going to show my friends? So shame, already we can see, it's a lineage thing.
Yeah.
It's stuck within us, and it takes so much courage to kind of go, no, babe, this is me. I'm going to show it. You not liking it, that is your responsibility to sort.
Yeah.
I like it. And I think somebody told me recently about somebody else being embarrassed or the notion of embarrassed or ashamed is you're focusing your attention more about how they're feeling rather than you're feeling.
When people say, I'm so embarrassed for them, I'm like, what do you mean?
Yeah, exactly.
That's such a weird thing to say.
You're like, no, babe, you don't need to worry about that.
Yeah.
So it's really interesting. And I think like just talking about like shame and stress and this modern world that we live in, I think it might be a good thing to talk about the nervous system. I feel like the word nervous system, it keeps on coming in, because it's so important for us now more than ever to connect to practices that bring us back into the body, not just as a one-off thing. Because, you know, when I said, oh, we do breathwork, we put it in a box and that's it. It's not a one-time thing. This is not like a luxury where you're like, oh, yeah, I'm just going to go to like, you know, yoga class or that kind of stuff. This is a necessity now. These are things that we need to do on a day-to-day basis to make sure that we're not at breaking point.
Yeah.
And I wrote an article recently about the idea of like, this is the long game. This is not just like a really short game where you do it once or twice. You need to pick the practices that are going to honor every single part of you. You know, people, beautiful community people who come to my sessions that are down regulating breath work, and then they jump into a hammock to be cocooned and I tuck them in. I have people who are coming every week religiously since we've opened because they're like, that's my practice.
That's their me time, right?
Exactly. I had a client who I put this offer up recently. I think it's only been up for like maybe a month, where it's like, come and try all the sessions for 2 weeks, are like unlimited for I think £49. Not the workshops, because you know the breath sessions are longer, etc. But come and try things like Qigong, which is, you know, incredible for the nervous system resets, where we do gentle, beautiful breath, then you hop into hammocks. Somatic unwinding, which is all about for people who are at desks all day, etc. And basically I had somebody who messaged me and said, you know, I feel really tired, really burnt out. What do you think? Is this good for me? And I was like, yeah, come, you know, for 2 weeks, etc. I shit you not, Annika, I shit you not. After 1 week of her doing it, she sent me this beautiful message just going, I cannot believe how better I feel in my body because I've been like connecting to all of these practices that are just giving me like a moment of this like coming back. I call it like this connection. And so if we're spending our entire lives in stress and anxiety and overwhelm, not just when we're adult, but also childhood as well, not just adulthood, but because, you know, that's how cortisol and stress works in the body, then it's not just one breathwork session that's going to regulate all of this. It's going to be a long game where we're going to connect with practices on a weekly basis, on a daily basis to help us with all of that, but also what's coming.
Yeah, and it's also about, you know, doing the breath work, but also there's things you can do at home. It's, you know, and the breath is free.
Exactly.
Well.
And this is what I say with the breath and hammock stuff that I do. I say all of the practices that we do here in the class is stuff that you can do at home. When I did the Joe Wicks thing, right, when I was telling people, I was like, it's micro moments. I'm not saying that every single person needs to fold out their yoga mat in the morning and sit down and do 20 minutes of breath. Not everyone's got that kind of time. You've got kids, you've got families, you've got women who are, you know, go to work. There's so much that you need to think about. I'm talking about micro moments.
Yeah.
Boiling the kettle in the shower, right? At the end of the day when you're putting moisturizer on your face. 60 seconds here, 60 seconds there, 2 minutes here, 2 minutes there, all adds up.
Yeah.
I promise you. It's those little tiny micro moments that will add up over time into these habits that you do. Even, you know, at your desk, you've just received an email. You're like, I just want to fucking break this keyboard. We've all had that. If no one's had that moment where they're like, I want to break this keyboard on someone's head, I need to meet you because, like, you're a lot calmer than I am. But we've all had those moments. So you're like, there, taking a conscious breath, coming back into your body, breathing a couple of times, you know, doing little techniques here and there will help you in the long run.
Yeah, I mean, that, I guess, that leads me on to my next question, and it was going to be for someone who feels unsafe in their body and they don't know where to start, and they've had trauma, burnout, a chronic illness. Where would you suggest, you know, what can they do to make themselves feel better in the first instance?
I think the first instance would be to stop. And I'm not just saying like to just stop. And, you know, sometimes when we stop, we think stop is the laptop in front of us and the phone and watching something. No. Stopping. You are going to have to learn how to feel safe in your body to be able to start this journey. That is the first step. And also, like the word admitting comes when you sit with yourself and you go, gosh, okay, I am burnt out. Letting yourself process that for a second. Gosh, I feel so ill. Letting yourself process. Then moving on to the next step. Well, what are the micro habits that I can have throughout the day? I remember someone, you've met her actually at Breathwork. She was so burnt out, and she'd asked me which breath session. I said, let's have a conversation over the phone. So I think I spent 20 minutes on the phone with her. And then she booked, and then she woke up that day and she's like, I'm just too tired, and was like, sleep. I think it was like a month later where she plucked the courage finally to come to Breathwork. And it was incredible for her. But she had to take a few steps before that.
Yeah.
She had to speak to me over the phone. She booked, but then she wasn't able to. It's okay. So when she felt she was ready, she came. But that took a few steps, right? That steps of like, okay, I'm taking it slow.
Yeah.
I'm listening to my body. And then she had an incredible experience, then went and did the Hoffman process, left her job, and now she's got a whole new incredible life, right? But gosh, first step is the acknowledgement, the awareness of like, oh fuck, I'm burnt out.
Yeah.
That's the first step to bringing safety back into your body.
Accepting.
Yeah, the acceptance.
What I find interesting about what you've just said is you can take a step forward and then you can take 3 steps back, and then
100%.
in a few months you might revisit something holistic, let's say,
100%.
and then you go forward again, and it's kind of this dance with yourself.
100%.
And I feel like, and I think you would resonate with this as well, like, and I've spoken to you about this a few times, but I miss Annika 1.0.
Yeah.
Wine drinking Annika, who could drink red wine most days of the week. On a Monday night would have a glass of wine after work, and all those things. And I don't want that anymore. And there was this icky period of going, but I can't drink anymore. It makes me feel really, rubbish, or it's not good for my health. It's, and then it's that acceptance. But I definitely went one step forward, about 6 steps back, and then
100%.
It's that dance.
And I think I love the word dance, so it's so lovely when you use
can
it that way. Yeah, thanks. I'm going to use it.
My coined word.
But I feel like dance is a beautiful way to look at the whole notion of what healing is, because it's never going to be a straight line.
Yeah.
It's always going to be this spirally bit where you feel like you're going up, and then you're like plummet down, fall back down and go up. And most of the time, people do it a couple of times, and then when they fall back down, they go back into their old habits, right? Because the old version, they know it, they feel safe with it, they understand it, right? It takes so much courage to pick yourself back up and do it over and over again until you go up that second stage and third stage. And then you're going to spiral back down, and then you're going to go up. That is the notion of it. That's exactly what it is. But also the word, you know, when you talk about the word acceptance, it's beautiful because for a very long time, when I was going through my own journey, there were the versions of me, like, you know, the 3-day partying girl, the scrambling for drugs, going around, all of that. There was a big part of me where I was like, oh, icky. That part of me is so icky. That version is so icky. That kind of stuff where you're like looking at photos of me absolutely wasted going, oh, shudder kind of thing. But I had to really sit with it to kind of go, my gosh, that version of me who was doing all of that was a version of me who was trying so hard to survive without knowing what I know now. And so I celebrate that version. I'm like, come here, you know, loving that version. So, you know, that bit between you and that old version of you where you're like, oh my gosh, like, I just want to have a glass of wine. It's sort of like, it feels like a mourning as well. The mourning of that version of you that was like, you know, the carefree of like, oh, I'm going to drink a glass of wine. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that, etc. There's sort of like a mourning of that version of you, but also a celebration of the new level that you're in. Yeah.
This has been such an interesting conversation, and I want to say thank you from the bottom of my heart, because I've learnt so many new things from today's conversation. And obviously you and I are friends. We speak about this kind of thing
all the time.
All the time. So where can people find you, connect with your work, or attend one of your breathwork sessions?
Come to the studio. The studio is based in Hackney Downs. It's beautiful. I designed it. Shout out to Dev, who helped me with the styling of it all and the architect of it all. Dev Cole. And I designed it with the breath in mind, right? And I designed it with the idea of that it's a space to come to explore with curiosity and joy, right? People who do aerial yoga at the studio, some of them have never tried yoga, but there's such a beautiful honoring of the inner child by going there. So based in Hackney Downs Studios, We the Conscious. I do all of my breath journeys there. You can find all the information on the website, which is wetheconscious.studio. You can follow on Instagram, which is also wetheconscious.studio.
Which I'll link to in the show notes as well.
Thank you. And yeah, come for a visit. And also, you know, we do a lot of stuff outside of the studio, right? We go for walks in nature, we do meditation, we do breath, etc. And it's such a beautiful community where people are meeting each other, and like you've formed so many beautiful friendships.
Got a WhatsApp group with
the
gals.
With the gals,
yeah.
Which is so beautiful. So some people have come to the walks and have not come to breathwork, but they've come to the walks, and the people on the walks have spoken to them about breathwork, and they've come to breathwork. What I'm trying to say here is come as you are with your own capacity to what you're ready to explore, for anyone who's listening.
Yeah, and I would say to anyone who feels perhaps conscious about doing it for the first time, you do one-to-one sessions. Most of your sessions are quite small and intimate, so people feel really
So it depends.
safe.
It depends what we're doing. So my signature sessions tend to be 25 people plus. My conscious connected breathwork and hammock experience tend to be 10. But there's something so, and of course I do my one-to-one sessions and I do my couples work, right? But and of course, shout out to the corporate people. We do corporate stuff. There's something so divine about breathing in community and And sometimes when you breathe in community, there's this energy, this unspoken energy. It feels like all the breath is syncing together. It's like I'm just getting goosebumps just thinking about it. There's a magnitude.
Yeah.
Where every single person is from completely different walks of life, all going through their own journey, all doing their own thing, but yet we're all rhythmically breathing together. That scream like that is just like, so powerful. But then people come do one-to-ones with me first and then come into the group. So there's lots of different ways you can explore it.
It's amazing. And I'm asking all my guests this. What does owning space mean to you?
It's a really good question. I think for me, owning space is standing in your story. Standing so unapologetically in your story, fully embracing every single version of you and not being afraid to show that. I think for me that is like, even if the space that you're owning is small, there's so much fucking magnitude in that. So that's kind of for me what owning space is.
Thank you so much for today, Lisa.
Oh my gosh,
I can't wait for our next session together. You've been amazing.
Thank you. Can I give you a hug on camera?
Yes.
Why not?
Let's do it. Thank you so much.
Oh my God.
I'm so happy. That was great.